So, let me tell you about Lisa. She's 52 years old, works a corporate job she's good at but doesn't love, comes home, makes dinner, scrolls through her phone for a bit, goes to bed. Her teenage daughter says, "Mom, you're so boring. You never talk about your feelings." Her boomer parents say, "You're so cynical. Why can't you just be positive?" And Lisa just shrugs. Because that's what Gen X does. They shrug and keep moving. But here's what's really happening in Lisa's brain. And I promise you, it's way more interesting than the world gives them credit for. Stay with me here, because Gen X is probably the most misunderstood generation alive. And if you're Gen X, you're about to feel incredibly seen. And if you're not, you're about to get why they are the way they are. Lisa grew up as a latchkey kid. Both her parents worked. She'd come home from school to an empty house, make herself a snack, do her homework alone, entertain herself until her parents got home at 6 or 7. No supervision, no constant check-ins, no "how was your day, sweetie?" And here's what psychologists have found. When your brain develops with that level of independence, it wires for self-sufficiency. Lisa's brain learned early, you're on your own, figure it out, don't wait for help because it's not coming. That's not coldness, that's survival programming. Her brain adapted to neglect by becoming incredibly resourceful. But here's the kicker. While she was raising herself, the world around her was falling apart in very specific ways. Her parents' generation promised that if you work hard, you'll be rewarded. Get a good job, stay loyal to your company, retire with a pension. Then Lisa watched those same companies downsize, merge, eliminate pensions, and toss workers aside like garbage. She saw her parents' loyalty mean absolutely nothing. Her brain absorbed a critical lesson. Institutions will betray you. Don't trust them. Don't count on them. So when people call Gen X cynical, they're missing the point. It's not cynicism, it's pattern recognition. Their brains learned to spot BS early. And let's talk about their spot in history, because this is fascinating. Gen X is sandwiched between two of the loudest generations in human history. Boomers before them, millennials after them. And Gen X, they're just there, in the middle, forgotten. Think about how that shapes psychology. Lisa spent her whole life watching boomers dominate every conversation. We changed the world, we protested, we revolutionized everything. Then millennials came along. We're struggling, the economy failed us, we're redefining everything. And Gen X is sitting there like, yeah, we went through that too, but nobody asked us. Their brains adapted to being overlooked by becoming completely self-reliant. They don't need validation, they don't need recognition, they'll just handle it themselves. But underneath that, there's exhaustion, a bone-deep tiredness from carrying everything quietly. Now here's where it gets really interesting. Gen X experienced something no other generation did. They remember life before the internet, and they adapted to life with it. Lisa remembers using payphones, writing actual letters, meeting friends without texting first. You just showed up and hoped they were home. She remembers privacy, real privacy, where your mistakes stayed in the past because nobody had a camera in their pocket. But then technology exploded and her brain had to completely rewire in adulthood. That's incredibly difficult neurologically. She's not a digital native like her kids, but she's not tech-resistant like her parents. She's stuck learning to code switch between analog and digital worlds constantly. And nobody acknowledges how exhausting that is. Let's talk about their relationship with work, because this reveals so much about their psychology. Lisa shows up, does her job, doesn't complain much, doesn't expect praise. She watched companies destroy loyalty, so she's not loyal back. But she also watched slackers get fired, so she maintains standards. She exists in this weird middle ground, competent but detached. Her boomer boss says, why isn't she more passionate? Her millennial co-workers say, why doesn't she push back more? And Lisa's just thinking, I'm here, I'm doing the work, what else do you want from me? Her brain learned that work is transactional. You trade time for money, That's it. No grand purpose, no family culture, just a deal. And when the deal stops working, you leave. No drama, no big announcement, just quiet exit. That's not apathy, that's boundaries. Healthy psychological boundaries that protect her from exploitation. Now here's the part that breaks my heart. Gen X is struggling mentally, and nobody's talking about it. Lisa's at an age where her kids still need her, but now her parents need her too. She's managing her daughter's college applications while also managing her mum's doctor appointments. She's the sandwich generation, squeezed from both sides. Her brain is in constant caretaker mode, but she was raised not to complain, not to ask for help, not to show weakness, so she just handles it quietly, alone, until she can't anymore. And you know what? Gen X has the highest rates of anxiety and depression of any generation right now, but they're the least likely to talk about it because their brains learned that feelings are private. You deal with your stuff internally, you don't burden others. Therapy, that's for people who can't handle things themselves. At least that's what their brain tells them, even though it's completely wrong. Let me tell you about their relationship with culture because this is wild. Gen X created grunge, punk, hip-hop, alternative rock. They invented irony and sarcasm as defense mechanisms. They gave us whatever as a complete sentence. They popularized not caring as an aesthetic, but psychologically, that's armor. When you grow up neglected, when institutions fail you, when you're constantly overlooked, your brain builds protection. And for Gen X, that protection is detachment. Cool indifference. Yeah, whatever, doesn't matter. Except it does matter. They care deeply. They just learned that caring openly gets you hurt. So they care quietly, privately, without making a big deal about it. Lisa will help you move without being asked. She'll notice you're struggling and slip you some cash. She'll show up when you need her, but she won't post about it, won't talk about it, won't expect thanks, because her brain learned that real help is quiet. And here's something fascinating about Gen X and technology. They're the last generation that remembers boredom. Real, genuine, nothing to do boredom. Lisa remembers summer days with absolutely nothing happening, no phone to check, no internet to browse, just existing. And her brain learned to be comfortable in stillness, to entertain itself, to not need constant stimulation. That's actually a superpower now. While younger generations panic without their phones, Gen X can just sit, think, be. Their brains don't need the dopamine hit every 30 seconds, but it also means they seem disconnected to younger people. Her daughter sees her mum sitting quietly and thinks she's depressed. Nope, she's just existing, something her brain learned to do decades ago. Let's talk about their parenting style, because this shows their psychology perfectly. Lisa parents the exact opposite of how she was raised. She's present, she's involved, she asks about feelings, she goes to every game, every recital, every parent-teacher conference, because her brain remembers the pain of being overlooked, and she's determined her kids won't feel that. But here's the interesting part. She also gives her kids independence. She doesn't helicopter. She lets them fail. She lets them figure things out, because her brain knows that's how you build resilience. So she's this weird mix of involved and hands-off, and both younger and older generations judge her for it. Boomers say she's coddling, millennials say she's too tough, and she's just trying to find balance between the neglect she experienced and the over-parenting she sees around her. Now here's what people miss about Gen X entirely. They're not apathetic, they're protective. When Lisa says whatever and walks away from drama, she's not being rude. Her brain is protecting her peace. She learned early that most fights aren't worth the energy. Most situations resolve themselves. Most people won't change no matter how much you argue. So she conserves energy for things that actually matter. That's not disengagement, that's wisdom. And you know what's beautiful? Gen X is hitting their 50s now, and something's shifting. All that quiet competence, it's becoming leadership. All that self-reliance, it's becoming mentorship. All that skepticism, it's becoming discernment. They're the ones keeping companies running while boomers retire and younger generations figure things out. They're the bridge, the translators, the steady hands. But they're doing it the way they've always done everything, quietly, without fanfare, without asking for credit. Here's what I want you to understand. Every time Gen X shrugs, there's decades of psychological adaptation behind that shrug. Every time they say whatever, they're protecting themselves from a world that taught them not to expect much. They're not cold, they're careful. They're not cynical, they're realistic. They're not disengaged, they're just tired of performing for a world that never really saw them anyway.